Hello! I hope you're doing well, everybody. So today is the last Sunday of October, which means that we are going to be eating some strawberries today in lieu of gaming. So we will start off with Wordle as usual, and then we will get right into it. Let me get our stream playlist going. Oh, that's loud. That's quite loud. That's that's better. Tell me if it's tell me if it's ever overpowering my voice, because that's not the goal. Okay. Um what should we do today? Let's just do Barry. Let's start with Barry. That was a bad idea. How about Pound? Okay, that's better. Hmm. Oh wow, that was a really short track, wasn't it? That's it. That's the whole playlist. It's over now. Um, Pluck. Bump. Bump. Cool. Moving on. Ba ba ba. Hello. All right. I'm very thirsty, so I'm going to be drinking a lot of water as we go. Continuing with I need to I forgot to get the link for buying the book if you want to buy the book. We're reading my dad's book. Get your own copy here. Copy paste. Boom. Such an ugly URL. But it is what it is. And now we resume. So we are on page 206. We're about halfway through the book. And we are in a chapter called The Big Three. And I'm going to go back to the beginning of the chapter to remind you and also me what the Big Three are. Where's the beginning of the chapter? Where's the beginning of the chapter? The Big Three. Big Three. Attachment, illusion, and permanence. Attachment being... Wait, let me make sure I'm saying that correctly, because... Yeah, so the big three things we're looking to do with a Buddhist approach, a Zen approach to life, not necessarily Buddhism itself, is to replace attachment with non-attachment, illusion and delusion with what is so, and permanence with impermanence. Basically, try to be okay with gaining and losing things as you go. Enjoy things while they're there, but don't expect them to stay. And let yourself suffer when you're suffering, but don't expect that to stay either. Tutor. 70% of the Earth is covered in water. Second grader. So why is it called Earth? Earth means dirt and soil and land. We named our planet in ancient culture after ancient culture when we had no idea it was mostly covered in water, when almost our whole experience of it, and certainly what we considered the most important part of it, that part that we lived on, was land. Our thinking and emotions are always deeply biased by the limits of our knowledge and over-consideration of ourselves. If we were fish, we would have called the planet Water World. If we were birds, we would have called it Sky World. We are land dwellers, so we call it Earth World. We are all as underinformed and overly self-important in much of real life as the blind men are in the ridiculous elephant parable. It is important to understand how extremely and obviously real an illusion can appear to be. You mustn't think that people are just being silly, dumb, oddly self-deceived, or weak-minded. They are actually just being people. Hi, Oscar, welcome. Illusions are commonly powerful, robust, and long-lived. For millions of people living in the first 250,000 years of our species' existence, everything in human experience made it obvious that the Earth was flat and stationary. This was so obvious that no one expects no one ever thought about it. What? I think that's a typo. This was so obvious that okay, there we go. I was reading it wrong. This was so obvious that one expects no one ever thought about it. It just was. There we go. Reading is hard. Buddha, Confucius, Moses, Jesus, and many other notables must be counted among the vast multitudes that had no idea at all that the Earth was not flat and stationary. Footnote. Ancient seafaring communities must have noticed the curvature of the Earth, of large bodies of water on the Earth, thousands of years before any of those just mentioned. Nonetheless, the most educated elites were still debating the crazy idea of a round Earth well into the Renaissance. Common people had little chance of even becoming acquainted with this topic as recently as a few hundred years ago. I'm not 100% sure how accurate that is. I know that we lost that information during the Dark Ages, but I think that knowing the Earth was round might have been more common than we typically think in older times. If for no other reason than if one realizes that the phases of the moon are due to the shadow that the sun casts on the Earth, gotta admit that the Earth is round. Although, I suppose people could think it's flat? I'm not sure. Well, anyway. I do remember learning that the earliest discovery that the world was round was like in ancient Greece. You would watch ships go off into the distance and eventually they would look like they sink underwater, but then they come back. Weird. They were not dummies, but they believed an illusion completely and could not even comprehend the possibility that it was an illusion. They were certain, based on overwhelming evidence. They were also completely wrong, and without a clue that they were wrong. They were just as unknowing about this as you and I are about many things. When ancient Greeks, notably Pythagoras, saw that various celestial and terrestrial observations could only be explained if the Earth was spheroid, this remained unknown or ignored by almost everyone on the planet. About 245 BCE, Eratosthenes, there's a lot of hard names in this book. Eratosthenes measured shadows in 2 different cities at the same time of day, exactly 1 year apart. From this alone, he proved that the Earth was round. Furthermore, by estimating the distance between the cities and using simple trigonometry, 2,300 years ago, he estimated the Earth's circumference to within 0.02% of what we now know it to be. His proof of a round Earth remained unknown or ignored by almost everyone on the planet. When ancient people saw the bottom of a departing tall ship disappear over the horizon before the top of the ship, and the top show up before the bottom when the ship approached, round Earth remained unknown or ignored by almost everyone on the planet. even those who witnessed it. Oh, well, there's the thing I was talking about. Recall that we love our illusions primarily because they serve us well in very many circumstances. This means we are unlikely to reevaluate them when they fail to serve us. Instead, we insist that the seemingly contradictory evidence is an illusion, rather than recognize new information as evidence that challenges an existing belief. When the belief is religious, we call the evidence not only an illusion, but evil. Given the abundant experience, obviousness, and sensibility of the Earth being flat, it made much more sense to believe that being flat was the truth, and the evidence for being round was the illusion. Upon seeing the top of the tallest mast show up before the rest of an approaching ship, I wonder what causes that illusion. Seems a much more sensible response than, the Earth must not actually be flat. Astonishingly, some people today still don't know that the Earth is round, even when having been presented with overwhelming evidence of multiple kinds from multiple credible sources. This modern group can rightly be accused of willful stupidity, but almost all 105 billion people throughout human history who believed the Earth to be flat were just being sensible. What does that remind me of? Oh yeah, I remember thinking that maybe today's flat earthers would be convinced that the Earth is round if they were able to observe it themselves personally. I no longer believe that to be true, but I did find a way that you can, as a normal person without any measurements, without any experiments, you can very easily determine for yourself that the Earth is round. When you look at sunrise or sunset, the sun is not... Where's the curve? When you look at sunrise or sunset, the sun is clearly not coming toward you or going further away. It is clearly coming up over the edge of the horizon. It is very clearly, very visibly coming around a corner, like turning. So combine that with the knowledge that there are time zones. If the sun is turning around the Earth, and it's only day in half the Earth at a time, that means the Earth must be round. Just those two pieces of information that everybody can confirm for themselves. And it's not enough. It's not enough for some people. Round Earth has been true since before the Earth was a planet, when it was just a spinning cloud of space debris and gas. Flat Earth has been the shared illusion of almost every human who has ever lived. That's one heck of a strong illusion. The illusions in your life and mine are no less powerful. In 1992, approximately yesterday, Pope John Paul II finally said about the condemnation of Galileo, the error of the theologians of the time, when they maintained the centrality of the Earth, was to think that our understanding of the physical world structure was, in some way, imposed by the literal sense of sacred scripture. This is fascinating for being blamed on theologians of the time, when only 2 years earlier, Cardinal Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI, reasserted that Galileo was wrong. It is even more fascinating for being a frank statement by a pope that the Bible should not be taken literally when it is contradicted by science. Sadly, this principle remains unknown or ignored by every biblical literalist on the planet. Time zones must be made up? I guess so. I've never been in a Zoom call with somebody in a different time zone. No, never once. We so love our illusions that we will punish or oppress, torture, or kill people rather than reconsider our illusions. Galileo's house arrest and the following centuries of illegal facts are the least of it. How many wars have we fought because of some illusion we believed to be 100% non-illusory? How many people have we killed, impaled, crucified, beheaded, stoned to death, beaten to death, tortured, maimed, starved, burned, executed, terrorized, hated, vilified, oppressed, disowned, traumatized? As simple a thing as a little humility about our certainty could have saved nearly all human-caused suffering in all of human history. It's an interesting claim that humility could have prevented most unnatural deaths caused by humans. Can't say it's not true. Don't have enough data for that. Excuse me. Here is an illusion about the Earth that you share in right now. Your lived experience in this very moment is that you are sitting still somewhere reading this book. Well, I don't know about that. In reality, the Earth is spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, about 700 miles per hour on average across different latitudes. It is also orbiting around the Sun at about 67,000 miles per hour, while our solar system is orbiting the center of the Milky Way galaxy at about 447,000 miles per hour. In addition to that, our galaxy is speeding through the expanding universe at about 828,000 miles per hour. You are sitting still at a speed significantly in excess of 1.3 million miles per hour, split across 4 different directions at the same time. And you only think you are moving when you add an additional movement on the order of 1/10,000,000th of 1% of that baseline. This is not a special case. This is the typical case, expressed in literally astronomical terms. It is just one of many ways in which none of us is a reliable witness about anything, including things of which we are certain because the facts are obvious and objective. Consult any news source to see the price we are pay. The price we are pay? Consult any news source to see the price we are paying today for illusions people have about ethnic groups, gender, sexual orientation, or the importance we give to such made-up things as religion, money, social class, and national borders, or even the notion that nation is a good idea. In each case, people genuinely believe they are operating on the basis of objective and obvious facts. And then there's a little tiny diagram of everything in the universe, and then this little dot is things that I am aware of. And underneath it says, the above dot is disproportionately large for illustration purposes only. Second blue circle is an enlarged things that I'm aware of. And this little sketchy circle is labeled things I know pretty well or very well. Point being, we don't know shit. We're very dumb. And we only have enough information to carry us through our lives in a practical sense, and sometimes not even that. Oh, there's 2 more. There's 2 more. So then, zooming in on the amount of things I know pretty well or very well, there's a very, very, very tiny circle within that, which is number of things I can think about rigorously at the same time. And within the realm of all things that are true, we have a very small circle that mostly doesn't overlap with it, that says things I know with certainty. I think that's pretty accurate. And then this is an illustration of the perspective reality gap, meaning, like, if you see an apple in, I guess, on Plato's cave wall, you would think that it's just a whole apple, but you don't see that the entire backside is missing. Here is a nerdy but instructive example. When I was learning Spanish, I became aware of a huge number of Spanish-English cognates, words in two or more languages that are identical or very similar in spelling and or sound and meaning. It was also easy to see that these cognates often reach across the entire Romance family of languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and the granddaddy of them all, Latin. Consider... Wait. Oh, okay. So, language and cognate. I'm not going to get the pronunciations of these right, and I'm sorry. But, English... I'll just talk about the spelling, because that I can report objectively. English has the word apparent. Portuguese has aparente, I think, which has only one P and an E at the end. Spanish also has aparente. French has the English spelling with an E at the end, and I will not attempt to pronounce that. Italian has apparent, same spelling as English, and Latin has apparent, same spelling as English. As a consequence of seeing so many cognates, and mostly similar grammar other than adjective-noun order in English, I thought it obvious that English was a member of the Latin family of languages. Imagine my surprise when I learned that English is a Germanic language. Have you ever seen or heard German? As an English speaker who does not know German, this makes no intuitive sense to me. But here's a short history to explain it. How now, brown cow, to you too, Pedro, welcome! The Goths invaded Britain in the early 400s with all their black makeup, just kidding. Over the next 6 centuries, this was followed by Jute, Saxon, Anglo, and Viking invasions, as well as gentler immigration from all of the above and from Germany itself. All of these people spoke Germanic languages. As Celts and Picts were largely driven to consolidate in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, southern Britain became increasingly Germanic genetically, culturally, and linguistically. One result of the Norman conquest was the displacement of Old English by French among the upper class in law. One result of the Norman conquest was the displacement of Old English by French among the upper class, in law, and in the church. Normandy had seen its own Viking invasion, so some of this French influence was once again Germanic. I'm now just picturing a bunch of goth teens invading ancient countries. It's a very fun visual, isn't it? Lacking any opportunity for education in the French language, the common people of southern Britain, which is to say almost everyone in southern Britain, continued to speak Germanic English. But due to the influence of the upper class and primary institutions on the general population, many French words and phrases entered into English in this period, either unchanged or anglicized. Over time, French-derived words gradually became a larger part of English vocabulary. English grammar was affected as well. It has been proposed that the difficulty Norman French people likely had in pronouncing word inflections called for by Germanic grammar resulted in several inflections simply being dropped. English has fewer grammatical inflections than other Germanic or Latin-derived languages. And that's true. Really, the only conjugation we have in English is present tense to past tense and present tense singular to present tense plural. Those are the only conjugations we do, which is pretty wild, given that every other language has, like, at least 6 conjugations, usually way more than that. To this day, much English vocabulary and grammar retains its Germanic heritage, but the Norman French influence on English may have precipitated the Great Vowel Shift, and in any case is a principal factor in the transition of Old English to Middle English. I just actually learned about the Great Vowel Shift a couple days ago. It's basically a phenomenon that happened when we moved away from Old English into Middle English, where all of our long vowel sounds, like heightened in some way. So like things that were low in the mouth became higher in the mouth, and things that were already high in the mouth became diphthongs. Diphthong meaning two vowel sounds combined. Like I, even though we think of that as a long vowel sound, that is two vowel sounds, ah and e. Similarly with ow, ou. I mean, well, that's obviously a diphthong because it is two vowels, but that's the general idea. Is diphthongs used to not exist in Old English, and then there was the Great Vowel Shift, and if I'm correct, no one is quite certain why it happened, but it did. To this day, much English Wait, I just read that paragraph. In the 1500s, Shakespeare's era, early modern English, loan words from the languages of classical education, Latin and Greek, were actively imported into English on a large scale without depending on either invasion or immigration. In the 1700s, French culture was held in tremendous esteem across Europe. Among other things, this led to a partial Latinization of English, giving it more in common with French. Many of the differences found between American and British English today arise not from linguistic divergence in the multicultural and distant colonies, but from lack of change in those cut-off colonies where British English continued to evolve under European influence. That is, where they differ, American English pronunciation and phrasing is often more traditional than British English. Footnote: while those speaking in most English dialects, including many UK dialects, continue to use something close to more traditional and standard American pronunciation for park the car in Harvard Yard, newfangled Brits since the 1900s, and many for whom English is a second language, park the car in Harvard Yard, perhaps after taking a bath. Dad. Of course, this is also recognized as characteristic of a Bostonian accent in the United States. Park the car in Harvard Yard after taking a bath. Well, no, they would say bath, not bath. But this is due to relatively modern accent immigration from the UK into Boston, not the continuation of a more traditional accent, as people tend to assume. In sum, then, English was originally and still largely is Germanic, yet it is also heavily influenced by Latin, French, and Greek. Why does anything happen? Very good question. I don't really know what that means, though. I don't know what answer you're looking for. Another footnote. The combination of Germanic roots and the vocabulary and other impacts of French, Latin, Greek, and languages from later British colonies has given rise to the spelling and grammatical inconsistencies that make English so difficult to learn as a second language, and even as one's first language. My aim in taking such a long technical digression is to underscore that even when intentional and sensible analysis informed by a lot of data is operative, both experts and non-experts can end up telling only part of the story. It is not complete to say that English is West Germanic, given that It is not complete to say that English is West Germanic, given that Latin, French, and Greek have had so much influence in the last 1,000 years. It is likewise not accurate to say that English is a Latin family language, when that would ignore the preceding 1,600 years. The accurate, but very easily missed analysis is more complex than most of us would expect. In summation, when we are sure we have all the data necessary to assess something, it is extremely likely that we are still data deficient, and consequently, wrong. Our humility should always exceed our certainty, for this reason alone. Add to that not knowing the full and often surprising nature of interactions among the data bits we do know, and the opportunities for our reasoning to be biased, flawed, or just plain mistaken. And we can only come to one conclusion: humility is a good policy. And I'm going to add a little caveat there. Be certain in your uncertainty, yes. I'm going to add a little caveat because I know my dad agrees with me on this because we've talked about it a lot. This is not to say that you should never be certain, never be confident, and treat every conflicting opinion as just as valid as your own. As I've said in previous streams where we've talked about this, there are different levels of uncertainty. If a scientist tells you a well-established observation common throughout their field, that has more weight than if you just bump into somebody on the street and they tell you something that conflicts it. In that case, you should definitely go with the scientist. You shouldn't say, well, I don't know, I've heard both things, so who can say? Even if the scientist is wrong, they are probably a lot less wrong than the person on the street. And that means you should go with what the scientist says, because even if it's wrong, it's still going to get you further in life. And just in general, yeah. I don't know, WebMD can make a good case against the scientist. Yeah! Self-diagnosing with incomplete common language diagnoses is, really a good idea. And obviously it doesn't always have to be that extreme. If you're in a business meeting and you have one idea and a coworker has a different idea, you don't have to say, well, you know, we should just flip a coin because we both have ideas and we're at the same pay grade. We both know the same number of things. Like, no, you discuss it and you see if you can get to a point where one of you sees it the other way, or maybe the two of you combined find a third way. But you should never say, although you should always be humble and you should always consider another person's perspective, you should always consider another person's perspective. But if you consider it and find it to be not as compelling as what you already know, I think it's fair to stay with what you already know. And that's not to say, like, because yeah, I think there are many closed-minded people who will be like, yeah, I considered it, and it's obviously nonsense, so I gave up on that line of thought. Like, no, you do have to apply critical thinking. You have to really consider, if what they've said is true, what does that imply? What does that contradict? How certain am I about the prerequisites for my beliefs? And all of that stuff. You gotta actually think. And that takes time. Nothing is ever obviously right. Actually, a really good example of this. You may have heard that when you crack your bones, your joints, the crack that you're hearing is not actually bone on bone, but gas being released. And I remember having the train of thought, that must be true, because it seems so obviously false that it never would have caught on if it wasn't true. And I talked to my dad about it, and he was able to explain something to me that I've kind of forgotten because it's complicated, but it made sense. And yes, gas is being released, that you're certainly not hearing your bones clicking against each other. That would be insanely painful. But I just think that that's always my go-to example of, like, truth being stranger than fiction. It's like, if I were to just take that at face value, I would be like, no. If you have gas in your body outside your respiratory system, like, your blood would clot and you would die. There's not gas in your joints. But there is. Sometimes. And if I had just held on to what I already thought was obviously true, then I never would have been able to accept that fact. Jokes aside, I like taking everything with a grain of salt. Even if something is completely off, it's interesting to see where the other person comes from. Yeah, and I think it's important to see why they think the things they think, especially when they're wrong, because that gives you more of a chance of like finding common ground with them. And also, if you know why somebody who disagrees with you is wrong, that can increase your own certainty about why you're right. And as long as you've been responsible and humble in coming to that conclusion, that can be really helpful. Truth is stranger than fiction, a lot of the time. But at the same time, we have Occam's razor, which is very helpful, which is the philosophical experiment of always choosing the simplest, most logical explanation for something because it is usually the right one. For example, if you hear hooves on cobblestone, assuming that you hear a horse is much more reasonable than assuming you hear a zebra, because there are not many places where you will hear a zebra's hoof hit cobblestone. And so, like, that's a good example of Occam's razor, but it goes back to something else we've talked about in this book, which is that a big part of wisdom is knowing when certain axioms apply, such as slow and steady usually doesn't win the race. But when slow and steady does win the race, it's important to remember that so that you can apply it. I was telling my sister, I think that's actually what we're saying when we talk about wisdom. I think wisdom is just the proficiency with which you connect ideas you already know in opportune moments. Like, I was telling her, I feel like if your mind is an encyclopedia, intelligence is how many entries are in the encyclopedia, the page count of the encyclopedia. And wisdom is how good you are at using the encyclopedia, knowing which entries to look up and when, cross-referencing them to make sure that they agree with each other. That's wisdom, in my mind. You would agree with that definition? I think it's a pretty solid one. Perception versus reality. When I was in my teen years, I had a girlfriend who related a remarkable experience to me. She and some friends were driving on the highway, speeding, when a patrolman spoke to them through their car radio to tell them to pull over. She thought that was a fascinating technological development. She didn't know how fascinating it was. I began to explain to her that what made it so fascinating was that it was not possible. The patrolman would have had to know that their radio was on, or been able to remotely force its mechanical switch on by radio waves, both being impossible. He would have had to know what station the radio was tuned into, or broadcast across the entire AM and FM frequency ranges at once, both options again being impossible. He would have to have had a transmitter in his car that was more powerful than a land-based commercial radio station to override that station signal, also impossible. He would have had to be able to broadcast from this impossibly powerful transmitter only to their car and to none of the others around them. Impossible. So while it must have sounded as if it came over the radio, that was an illusion. She got mad at me for thinking I knew better than she did when she was there and heard it with her own ears, and I wasn't. She was a first-hand witness, and I wasn't even there. How dare I be so arrogant as to think I know better than she did? That was over 50 years ago, and it is still technologically impossible. It was a thoroughly unimportant, but very good illusion. Her attachment to her certainty as a first-hand witness is entirely normal, just as it was entirely mistaken. There were relevant factors that she didn't even know she didn't know, as is always true when we are certain. Let's go on to something even more basic. Color perception. There are no such colors as brown, gold, silver, white, pink, or many others, nor do they result from adding or subtracting otherwise combined colors that do exist. Our brains make them up. A commonly given example is purple. Perhaps you know that red and blue combine to make purple, but they don't. You might think that they just get averaged, so what's the big deal? But the average of red and blue frequencies is green, not purple. What happens when red and blue detectors in our eyes are stimulated and green detectors are not stimulated is our vision processing neurons effectively say, everything except green. Our name for that subjective experience is purple. Purple is a fabrication of neurons. Don't confuse purple with violet. Violet does exist. Outside of neurons, the color purple does not exist. The next time you look at a radiantly white flower petal or a dark brown piece of wood, tell yourself that the color you see is just an illusion and watch how that doesn't change your perception in the slightest. Yet it is something happening inside your brain that does not match what is happening outside of your brain. That is the very definition of an illusion. The familiar colors of the rainbow, including the variations between them, are actually all of the colors that exist in the real world outside of brains. There are two visual tidbits to underscore that an honest, first-hand witness report is not necessarily the same thing as an accurate report. For example, the two large gray areas in this picture are the same shade of gray. And once you know that, you can make yourself see it. But at a casual glance, you would never guess it. I don't know if this is going to work across a webcam. Oh no, it picks up pretty well. There's no yellow in that picture. It's just blue and black ink. Demonstrated visually above, because this is a book, distorted perceptions are not just a visual phenomenon. All of our direct perception produces illusions before we even get to the illusions that our imperfect attention and emotional and cognitive predispositions overlay on all that we sense, feel, and think. Never something I gave thought to or looked into? Optical illusions, you mean? Or just colors? I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but yeah, I find this stuff really cool. Demonstrated, I just read that. Here is an example of bias introduced by simple word choices. The color part, yeah, the color part's cool. As for gold and silver, those aren't colors because they're actually textures. Like gold and silver are just dark yellow and dark gray plus reflectivity. So it's actually a mixture of a color and texture. And likewise with brown, brown is actually dark orange. It's just that if orange gets dark enough and has the right combination of red, blue, and green, it becomes brown somehow. My favorite Pokemon game is a lie? No, it's just shiny gray. Where was I? Guess it makes sense when you use an online color mixer. Yeah. Honestly, the only reason I know that brown is dark orange is because I've had to make brown out of a color wheel in editing software before. And I was like, there's no brown here. I'm looking through the entire spectrum and there's no brown. And there is a picture here of the color spectrum as well. Obviously, it's printed on a page, so it's not perfect, but these are approximations of all the colors that actually exist. All other colors are fabrications in our minds. This is not just intellectually... Sorry, I skipped ahead. Here is an example of bias introduced by simple word choices. In a well-known experiment, a group of people watched a video of a small car accident. They were then split into two subgroups. One subgroup was asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed together? The other subgroup was asked, how fast were the cars going when they bumped into each other? The first group estimated a significantly higher speed than the second. Both groups witnessed the same video at the same time, in the same environment. This is not just intellectually interesting. Here is an example of how consequential misperception can be. A review of 367 DNA exonerations in the United States found that misidentification by eyewitnesses was the leading cause of these wrongful felony convictions. A separate report by the National Registry of Exonerations found that at least 450 non-DNA based exonerations from wrongful felony convictions also involved eyewitness misidentification. Gustav's theme is wonderful. It's so good. Oh, I beat the game, by the way. Really good. Really depressing, but really good. So good. Wonderful, wonderful game. Clair obscur. Expedition 33. I don't know my French numbers, I'm sorry. The next time you are about to say you know something with certainty because you were there, you saw it with your own eyes, heard it with your own ears, felt it with your own fingers, smelled it with your own nose, tasted it with your own mouth, don't be so certain. Humility is a beautiful thing. We are easily fooled at the lowest levels of sensory perception, and repeatedly at each more complex processing level above it. I was about to ask that. Actually met Verso's, oh wow! A few days ago. Now I've got a signed Final Fantasy XVI art book. That's so cool! Nice! I have no chance of meeting any of the cast of Clair Obscur because they're all across the pond. Does across the pond mean... I can't remember. Does across the pond mean mainland Europe versus the UK? Or does it mean the Atlantic Ocean? Because I've always used it as the Atlantic Ocean, but I've heard people use it to refer to the European mainland as well. That's so cool, though. I hope he's nice. I always hope actors are nice. I remember learning about the witness misinterpretation. The brain can really play tricks on itself. It can make itself sick, make certain of things completely untrue. Clair Obscur is indeed sad, French sadness, but it's so good. I also think it's interesting how the two subgroups in that experiment, what split them apart was not actually the experience they had in the moment, but how they were questioned about it afterwards, which means that police interrogators actually shape the witness reports that they get without even meaning to. That's a massive amount of responsibility that, frankly, they're not trained for because they're not psychologists. And I'm sure that they have like some protocol, and they're certainly trained to try to ask open-ended and not leading questions, but I mean, when you're in the field, you're in the field. You make mistakes. You get lost in the moment. He's a really cool guy? Yes! Go Ben Starr. We never have an objective and complete read on all the relevant information about anything, even basic perceptions. As a result, our conclusions are often wrong, even when we are certain. Our information, and hence our conclusions, are always lacking, even when they are correct enough to be useful. And in my opinion, that's our goal. We should only ever ask of ourselves that we be correct enough for that information to be useful. It doesn't matter if we're objectively correct or not. We just have to be correct enough that we're able to navigate our lives in a subjectively utopian way. Not utopian, but I just mean do everything in your power to create the least suffering possible. But you will not, and that's okay. We just have to do our best. Considering how much we can never know, to not be humble is foolish. Considering how much others face the same impediments we do in their attempts to function in the world, to not be compassionate about their errors is both unkind and foolish. Going through life with such soft and warm things as humility and compassion is the closest we get to operating on the basis of the hard, cold, objective truth of human experience. Holy shit, I like that sentence a lot. I'm gonna read it again. Going through life with such soft and warm things as humility and compassion is the closest we get to operating on the basis of the hard, cold, objective truth of the human experience. You hear that, Republicans? Somebody's talking to me. Oh, I don't know. This is a text from my sister. The uncomfortable, objective truth is that we are always playing with sloppy probabilities based on illusions, filters, and distortions, not comprehensive certainties based on reality itself. Oh, and that is an abrupt end to that chapter. Sounds like a Ray Bradbury line? It does. The next chapter is called Freedom. Some anti-freedoms. Spend a moment thinking about phobias. For example, imagine that spiders make you uncomfortable. I don't have to imagine, Dad. Now imagine that they make you so uncomfortable that seeing one makes you gasp and flee. Okay, maybe not that. Now imagine that you are walking among some trees on a hot summer night wearing shorts and a t-shirt. As you pass below some branches, a sticky, tickly sensation tells you that you have just walked through a spider web and it is sticking to your face. You then feel something small crawling up your bare leg. You look down and see 3 spiders coming up your left shin and calf. Then the largest one bites you, and it really hurts. Many people have terrifying, incapacitating phobias, sometimes without an identified initial fright. With and without clear origin stories, people are not just anxious, but marginally subphobic about many things. Job interviews, first dates, public speaking, surgery, dental work, small conflicts, loving fully. No one is totally immune. We like freedom. We like to think we have a lot of it. The clarity and equanimity gained as we approach enlightenment will gradually give us more freedom by reducing our subphobias. But we have a long way to go to lose our subphobic responses to loving fully, living fully, and, dealing with spiders. I had a spider move around my neck just yesterday while I was doing a rehearsal. That spider excerpt is very fitting. Eee! I hope you weren't bit. At least that much is fictional. Subphobias and gentler anxieties are only one type of anti-freedom in the human brain. Our feelings and thinking are conditioned by our biology, the values and dynamics of our family origin, the community in which we were first socialized, and the others we have lived in... the other communities we have lived in, visited, read about, and imagined. We are also conditioned by the smallest and largest of our personal experiences, and even by the languages that we speak, most especially our first language. We learn our first language at the same time our thinking itself is in its most tender stages of development. We are not as close to freedom as we idly imagine. We sometimes conceive of freedom as the absence of limits, but that might just be a fancy name for compulsion or gluttony. If I am free to eat as much as I want, but not free to eat. No, wait. Holy shit. If I am free to eat as much as I want, but not free to not eat because I am eating compulsively, that is not freedom. If I am free to have sex with as many people as I want, but I am having sex compulsively, then I am not free. Just as we have many subphobias, we have many subcompulsions, intense feelings that do not quite command behavior, but influence it to an extent we perceive as too much. The recommendations for abstinence from pleasure can recur across almost all religions. The recommendations for abstinence from pleasure that recur across almost all religions seem to me to be an overreaction to how hard it is to define the boundary between enthusiastic enjoyment and compulsion. However vague and permeable it may be, I think there is a boundary for each of us, for each different type of pleasure, and it is worth finding it so we don't miss pleasures on the one side or become slaves to them on the other. Enjoy your pleasures, but don't attach to them. Having a glass of warm milk before bed can be emotionally and physiologically helpful. Being in distress because you could not have a glass of warm milk is the emotional and psychological opposite of helpful. Oh, and physiological opposite of helpful. Enjoy, but don't attach. Loving good food is one of life's great and enduring pleasures. Eating too much makes one vulnerable to more chronic illnesses than any other common activity. Reducing our intake of food can play a vital role in improving our health, but can also end our life. My goal, and the middle path, is to enjoy what is good rather than banning it or becoming enslaved to it. It's hard. I often get it a bit wrong. The middle path is often challenging, but I'd rather take the risks and pay the costs of working on the difference between enjoyment and attachment than abandon pleasure entirely. Pleasure may be dangerous, but forbidding pleasure removes the entire motivation to put up with life's incessant demands and pains. Please note that I mean pleasure broadly, including the pleasure of a good book, of playing with a grandchild, of witnessing your own growth of accomplishment, of helping others, of crying when witnessing love, kindness, or heroism, as well as the basics like good food and good sex, and good video games. There is a Buddhist parable in which a hare asks a wise monkey for guidance. The hare says that he has found a beautiful golden watering can. Admiring its beauty, he is now carrying it around, but he has no actual use for it. As a consequence, he is not sure what to do with it. The monkey observes that carrying the water can impedes the hare's walking, so it is worse than useless. It is an impediment to its progress. The monkey asks the hare if it wouldn't be better to give the watering can to someone who would both admire its beauty and also benefit from using it. You and I often cling to things we admire or desire even when they don't serve us well, even when we could give them to someone who would benefit from them much more, even when they are impediments for us. When the thing in question is an idea or feeling, it's simultaneously simpler and more difficult. When we find ourselves repeating an idea or feeling that impedes our progress, we don't need to find a home for it with someone else. We only need to release ourselves. This is simpler in that no one else need be involved, yet it is more difficult than making a gift of something we don't really use. We use our ideas and feelings all the time, even when they do us harm. Responsible freedom does not mean that you do whatever you want. It means you want what you do, and if you don't, then you change what you do. If I am free to go, but not free to stay, then I am released from one specific constraint, no longer needing to stay against my will, but I am not free. If I were truly free to go, I would simultaneously be free to stay. Spending some time thinking about what freedoms you have, what freedoms it looks like you have but you really don't, what freedoms you desire and don't have, and what choices you make that don't feel like choices but really are. People often feel, I have no choice but to do X. You might not have great alternatives to X, but you do have alternatives. You choose to go to your job even if you don't like it, because you choose not to be unemployed, and you do not presently have any other job offers. You choose to feel chronic pain rather than constantly take narcotics because you choose not to let narcotics deprive you of even more quality of life than pain does. You have children with exceptional needs that you take care of them even though you sometimes just want to collapse because you long ago made a fundamental choice that taking care of them to the best of your ability is a non-negotiable personal value. These might seem like non-choices because the option selected doesn't have great competition. These can be painful choices that are difficult or even terribly draining to live with. But you have actively chosen them and keep re-choosing them at personal cost because you assess that they are better than the alternatives. Truly embracing that is different from feeling entirely victimized. I am doing what I think is best aligned with my values, even when it is extremely difficult, is recognition of one's values, integrity, strength, and moral choice. I have no choice is both untrue and demoralizing. Don't fail to recognize your courage and commitment. You should instead be proud of yourself, especially because of how hard it is. That doesn't make you a victim. It makes you heroic. My aunt could stand to read that passage. It very often requires bravery just to continue existing in difficult situations, and we don't feel brave. We just feel like we don't have a choice. When you ask people how they could have been so brave as to run into a fire and rescue someone, they often say they didn't feel brave, didn't think much about it, just felt that there was no choice to be made. You are making choices all the time that don't seem like choices, but are, and they require bravery. Living with the challenges in your life, you are, right now, being braver than you recognize. You might feel exhausted, resentful, burdened, unhappy, on the edge of defeat. You might sometimes note that if you were defeated and not so resilient, you'd finally get some rest. If along with all of these things you also felt brave for being resilient and hanging in there, that would improve the completeness and accuracy of what you are feeling. Quote, "Sometimes even just to live is an act of courage." Seneca. Concentration camp survivor Viktor Frankl reminds us of the most important choice we have. Quote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Viktor Frankl. Here is a way that many of us surrender freedom without thinking of it as such. Someone makes a negative remark about you, or they don't, and you just hear something that way. You know yourself far better than they know you. This remark might come from someone you would never even go to for advice, yet, instead of exercising your very real freedom to be unaffected by their ill-informed opinion, or your own misconstruing of their message, you feel hurt and/or angry. That is freedom thrown away. Quote, "If a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along and abuses you, leaving you disturbed and troubled." Epictetus. We lose our freedom to enjoy a peaceful state of mind to almost anyone, over almost nothing. Anxiety rushes at us, and we hold the door open for it. A self-possessed person would not question their worth because someone else did. They would likely reflexively feel hurt, but they would shift to being puzzled how someone could misread them so badly. Don't give your power and freedom away to others. There are several connections with Buddhist thought here. If you are well connected with what is so, Someone saying things that are not so will raise more curiosity than hurt or anger. If your default state of mind is characterized by calm, peace, and clarity, that will be hard to dislodge, and it will strengthen your ability to see someone else's behavior as a comment on them, and not on you. Freedom from dogma. We have seen that Buddhism is extraordinarily non-dogmatic. While it certainly presents a strong statement about life's purpose and how to live so as fully... While it certainly presents a strong statement about life's purpose and how to live so as... Fuck! Sentence structure is hard. While it certainly presents a strong statement about life's purpose and how to live so as to fulfill that purpose from its source documents to the current day, it counts on the intelligence, decisions, and... I'm struggling so much with this. While it certainly presents a strong statement about life's purpose and how to live so as to fulfill that purpose, from its source documents to the current day, it counts on the intelligence, decisions, agency, and responsibility of each person to find their own way. Did it. Quote, "People take different roads seeking fulfillment and happiness. Just because they're not on your road doesn't mean they've gotten lost." His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Quote, "Each person's journey is unique. Craft your own definition of a fulfilling life." Seneca. Quote, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light of meaning in the darkness of mere being." Carl Jung. The most fundamental kernel of dogma in any religion is whatever it presents as life's meaning or purpose. When I was in college in the mid-1970s, like many others, I spent a lot of time thinking about the meaning or meaninglessness of life. Meaninglessness? How should I have emphasized that? I don't know. Having rejected religious assertions on this subject, it was clear to me that life has no inherent meaning. This implied that I had no justification for my life in particular. I had some angry and depressive thoughts, as befit my age and that time in American history: the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, the Women's Movement, and the Ecology Movement. But I was not clinically depressed, not suicidal, just troubled that I didn't have a good reason not to commit suicide as a sort of logical conclusion of life's inherent lack of purpose. Quote, "In the absence of purpose, life becomes an endless journey to nowhere." Seneca. One afternoon, as I was walking home from... sorry, I was gone for a bit. My connection's being wonky today. I keep disconnecting on and off. Well, welcome back! One afternoon, as I was walking home from a class and thinking about this, a beautiful resolution suddenly struck me. Before my inner voice could finish saying it inside my head, I was so enthusiastic about the answer I hit upon. If life has no inherent, imposed meaning or purpose, which many find a depressing idea, that's actually very liberating. It means we can each create whatever meaning and purpose in our lives that we find compelling, and we can't get it wrong. If there is no right answer, no one meaning, no purpose, it's yours to define for you. I was energized to more intentionally find and fulfill my own sense of purpose, making this one of the pivotal moments in my life. This was a great resolution to the common problem of existential despair. This is actually why I find it very confusing when people are depressed by existentialism and atheism. I'm like, but you're free. You can't... like... I guess not free. You shouldn't go around harming people. But in terms of what you want to do with your life, I mean, pretty straightforward. To be fair, it's not like religions tell you... Religions do often tell you that you must live a certain way, but most modern interpretations of many religions are very liberal with that. Not in a political sense, but in a, like, a forgiving sense. Like, for the most part, what all religions and atheism have in common is that they're mostly just saying, don't be an asshole. And the rest is up to you. Just because some god or other figure doesn't give you a destiny or a purpose or a goal doesn't mean you can't have one. Just means that you've got to think hard before you find it. And some people are allergic to that. When you're used to a higher power and such, it can be scary to suddenly have everything be so open. Yes, I definitely understand that. Certainly for me, a lot of the time, constraint fuels creativity. For example, I don't really love writing music just for the sake of writing music, but if I'm making a remix or a mashup, or if I'm writing a soundtrack for somebody else's art, then I really enjoy it, because then I'm not starting with a blank canvas. I'm building off of something that already exists. So I definitely understand that freedom can be overwhelming and paralyzingly scary. I definitely understand that. But it is my opinion that with something as vitally important to a person's life as destiny or purpose or anything like that, you really owe it to yourself to brave that scariness. You really do. Otherwise, you're just subscribing to somebody else's idea of a good life. And that's not going to serve you in the long run. Not to mention, it might turn you into a bigot. A chained-up animal might not leave once it is freed. It has grown used to its chains. Yeah, what was that anecdote I just heard? I think it was about Stalin, how he, like, tortured a chicken, but then fed it, and it continued to follow him around. And he was like, see? Stupid people are easy to manipulate. It's like, Jesus Christ, Stalin. Anyway. I didn't know at that time that this is the classic, perhaps one could even say prescribed, response to existential despair. It is composed of creating meaning, living authentically, connecting with others, embracing the human condition, and pursuing philosophical inquiry and personal reflection. This example illustrates what I meant by applied philosophy in the introduction. I considered a philosophical question, and I came to a philosophical conclusion that reduced some of my angst in the near term and helped me put myself on a path I have stayed on as best I can ever since. This philosophical moment was not some abstract navel-gazing. It gave me purpose, meaning, and direction for the rest of my life. My shortcomings and setbacks notwithstanding, that path has coursed through various relationships, friendships, educational courses, jobs, family dynamics, and personal decisions, all informed by a gradually maturing answer to the question, who am I? The constant companion to this question has been, how can I make my life more meaningful, purposeful, enjoyable, and satisfying for myself and those I affect? Quote, living without philosophy is living without direction. Without an internal compass to guide our lives, we will follow the path marked by the submissive mass. We will absorb without questioning the values and aspirations of society, and we will die without having actually lived. Marcus Aurelius. That's especially striking, because Marcus Aurelius, I mean, when was he alive? Like 5,000 years ago? Like toward the beginning of recorded history? And he'd already figured that out? That's crazy. Out of curiosity, has reading this book been an eye-opener to some things about your dad, or have you always discussed things like this? It certainly has been, it's definitely introduced me to some new ideas, but nothing surprising. My dad and I have always had a very open dialogue about philosophy, and I think he's shared that with my sister as well. The three of us really like to think in this sort of vein. So although there are definitely ideas in this book that I haven't considered before, none of them are like, "Whoa, Dad, I had no idea you felt this way." It's like, well, yeah, you're my dad. This is who you are. My dad has changed a lot over the years, in my opinion, but nothing has changed him more than who he was seeing at the time. There was a period in my teenage years where he was quite hard, and I attribute that to who he was dating at the time, but now he's married to my stepmom, who's a really, really lovely woman, and he has softened back into what I think more closely represents who he truly is. And I continue to be impressed by him because he, it seems to me that although his core values have never changed, he has been able to adapt them to this ever-changing world, even though he's in his 70s now, and I respect the fuck out of that and hope that I can do the same. Although, here's an interesting thing that he and I have talked about before. It's weird because he was posting one time on Facebook. He was talking about how sometimes non-binary people and their allies will be really overly insistent that everybody get their they-them pronouns right consistently immediately. And my dad was just saying, like, you're turning away would-be allies who just need some time to adjust to that grammatical shift. Because, yes, we do use they-them in a singular context in English, but only when we are not specifying a subject. Prior to using they-them as personal pronouns, we only ever used they-them singularly when we didn't specify who we were talking about. So it is a mental gear change. And my dad was just saying, like, just give us some time. We're trying. We're old. We've spoken English one way for decades, and we're having to adjust words that we already know and use on a daily basis. It's going to take a little time. And some people were like, yes, I feel the same way. Thank you so much. And other people were like, you're just transphobic. And it's frustrating. And then to make things even more confusing, people will, of course, latch on to that kind of logic to justify their transphobia, right? They'll be like, no, I'm trying so hard. I'm trying really hard, you guys. You just be patient with me for the rest of my life, because I'm not going to try for the rest of my life. And that's not what he's saying either. The world is messy, but I like that my dad is able to, he's not just taking in new ideas unfiltered and being like, well, that's what the kids believe, so I believe it. Like, he does still apply critical thinking to everything before he accepts it, and the fact that he's able to do both of those is what we should all strive for, I think. I think that is a prerequisite for being a truly good global citizen. Anywho. He seems pretty admirable. I admire him. I don't mean to gush too much, because obviously I'm biased, but I do think that my dad is one of the better people out there. And frankly, I like to think the same of myself. When one does not accept a religion's unquestionable assertions about the meaning of life, philosophy is what gives life meaning. If one does take their lead from religion, it is still philosophical inquiry and real-world application that makes religious precepts meaningfully present in one's life, and not just a set of superficial answers to unexamined questions. You're good. I ask this because I wish for something like that. No, I understand that. I'm very fortunate in my family dynamics. My sister is one of my best friends. I have good relationships with both of my parents. I can talk about philosophy and politics with my dad without either of us getting tired or offended. And even my two living grandparents vote blue. So like I've really got no complaints about my family life, other than that my dad still has an irrational hatred for my mom, and that can cause complications. But overall, my family life is pretty close to flawless, and I don't take that for granted. I take that as the privilege that it is, because it's wonderful. Truly. Purpose and meaning in my life come from raising my kids, or being with grandchildren, or doing community service, or climbing Mount Everest, or whatever circumstances and activities give you your life purpose and meaning. They only do so because of what you value. Consciously or not, intellectually derived or not, what you value is a philosophical matter. What you do about it is your experience in applied philosophy. Are you good at applied philosophy? How can you be a more conscious, intentional, applied philosopher, creatively producing more goodness for yourself and for others? Enlightenment. Being yourself. Being oneself is an integral part of being enlightened. It's impossible to imagine an enlightened person not having deep self-knowledge or not behaving authentically. When are we free to be ourselves? All of the time. What about oppression? What about abusive relationships? What about any relationships? What about when we're at work? What about when we are emotionally compromised? We might be ourselves in a constraining environment or in a terrible situation. We might be ourselves not at our best. We might be ourselves acting in ignorance of our own nature or our own best interests. But we cannot be not ourselves. That's a nonsensical construction. Me under duress is still me under duress. Quote, "Finding yourself is not really how it works. You aren't a $10 bill in last winter's coat pocket. You are also not lost. Your true self is right there, buried under cultural conditioning, other people's opinions, and inaccurate conclusions you drew as a kid that became your beliefs about who you are. Finding yourself is actually returning to yourself, an unlearning, an excavation, a remembering who you were before the world got its hands on you." Emily McDowell. You don't need to wait for this or that to be true before you become yourself. You don't become yourself gradually. You cannot be not yourself. You are, today, now, already 100% yourself. If you don't like some of who you are, how you think, what you feel, how you behave, the same you can change it. And you're the only one who can. You are always the one and only agent able to make your behavior an authentic expression of your values, thoughts, and feelings. Circumstances can make the task easier or harder. Individual people and sociological forces can help or hinder. But the task is always your own, and you are always already yourself. Change what you don't like. Expect it to take time and to go places you have not anticipated. Buddhism holds that we are all already enlightened, already Buddhas, already our truest and best selves, and our essential task is to chip away all the junk that obscures this. Whether or not you think you are an enlightened Buddha in disguise, it is definitional that you are already being who you actually are, because nothing else is possible. You will undoubtedly prefer some aspects of who you are over others. The way to make your most desired aspects more prominent, or to add aspects you want but don't see in yourself right now, is to use them more and more often. The way to rid yourself of aspects you don't want is to use them less and less often. It may be difficult to do, but to state it is simple. Quote, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." Aristotle. Quote, "You practice and you get better. It's very simple." Philip Glass. I think that quote appeared earlier too, maybe both of them. More often do what you want to do more. Do less of what you want to do less. This can be infuriatingly difficult, but it is not complicated. Just stick with it. The outcome you seek is the outcome obtained from regular, mindful practice. Practice. A lot. Behave in a manner that advances your self-development for the sake of being the best possible version of an ever-developing you, not in order to gain something from outside of you. Then what happens is what happens, and it will be better than what happens if you act otherwise. What enlightenment is? A common image of enlightenment is that it is something not in us that we may strive to attain in accordance with extensive instruction and practice. That is a very Western way of thinking. Buddhism construes it differently. Buddhism holds that enlightenment is already inside of us, obscured by illusions and unwholesome feelings, thoughts, and actions. Michelangelo said that he sculpted by taking away all the parts that did not belong until the sculpture was revealed. This is literally true about sculpting stone. One uncovers it into existence. I love this track. Similarly, Buddhism advises us to reveal the enlightenment already within us by removing everything that does not belong. You might say that the sculpture analogy breaks down because the sculptor has a mental model and almost certainly sketches of what is to be sculpted, and more than a passing idea about what aesthetic qualities the end product should have. And that's a fair point, but the difference is one of degree, not of kind. Like a sculptor, you have a mental model of what a more enlightened version of you will look like. You have some sketches of what enlightenment looks like that come to you from the surrounding culture. Don't cling rigidly to these partially informed and possibly wrong ideas, but don't assume they are worthless either. Explore. Find out. It is good. As you approach enlightenment, your view of what it looks like will itself gradually become more fully informed, just as the stone's gradually revealed properties affect the final sculpture. Sometimes you will make a mistake or discover something unexpected. Reflect and keep sculpting. Buddhism tells us that we can gradually reveal the enlightenment within which much instruction, study, and practice over multiple lifetimes or in an intuitive instant. One might say that the point of instruction, study, and practice is not that they bring enlightenment, but that they make the mind into more fertile ground in which enlightenment may be gained in an intuitive instant. If you cruelly harm others as a matter of course, it is extremely unlikely that you will become enlightened in an instant. If you contemplate and act on virtues as a matter of course, it is much more likely that you will at least progress in an enlightened direction. More on this later. Buddha lived in luxury and pleasure for years, and in deprivation and pain for years, before becoming fertile ground for a simple observation to awaken him to avoid extremes and live along the middle path. It took a long time for him to be ready to become enlightened in an instant. I like that sentence. Buddhavamsa I think that's how you pronounce that, maintained that Siddhartha had journeyed through hundreds of lifetimes before the one in which he was ready to become the Buddha in an instant. Across his many parables, Buddha mentions his own previous incarnations over 500 times. Even though we may require such instruction, study, and practice, it removes a significant cognitive and emotional barrier to cast enlightenment as coming home instead of seeking something alien. Try assuming that it is already in you. You have to practice to get good at living in an enlightened way. You have to chip away and discard obscuring junk to reveal the wisdom you already have. But it's not a foreign thing outside of your control or experience or nature. It is your nature. It's just waiting for you to see it and exercise it more and more. Part instruction, study, and practice, and part flashes of insight is how people learn anything that requires skill. Piano, tennis, computer programming, painting, chess, communicating with others, loving well, and living an enlightened life. So what is enlightenment? What does it look like? Should you look for a tall, dark, handsome stranger? The shimmering lady of the lake? A rotating, iridescent pyramid? A lotus flower floating on a still pond? By what features will you recognize it? Zen's answer is, characteristically, vague. You might say it is intentionally and productively vague. Zen teachers stimulate your search, rather than giving you their answers. It's funny, here I am being told we are all enlightened, but must find that self buried beneath what the world has done. Meanwhile, it was hammered into me that we are sinners and must always remember everything I am and own belongs to God. Salvation in that sense and enlightenment are achieved in such different ways. I think that's a really important observation. I do think that in some ways, again, I'm very biased in this, but I do think in some ways that mindfulness and some religions are antithetical to each other. And I know that it's honestly not even that controversial to say that Catholicism in particular is kind of built around hurting its followers. Like, Catholicism is... it's brutal, man. It's brutal. I'm not going to claim that mindfulness is right and like traditional conservative religions are wrong, but that is certainly my belief, and I think there's a lot of reason to believe it. Here is an analogy. If you are looking for a partner in love, although it's not easy, most people find one. But what do they find? Some high or low fidelity version of what their written or unwritten checklist says they should be looking for. Whether detailed or vague, that checklist is a map rather than a reality. The relationship breakup rate and the marital divorce rate combine to say that using a map is not a very good approach for something as multifaceted, subtle, and ineffable as finding a partner for a long-term love relationship. I could go so much into that, but this might not be the best place. I've spoken to a lot of Catholics about Catholicism. I have to say the dislike to like ratio is really high. And look, I'm willing to say, like, if you do want to talk about it, you can DM me on Discord, because I'm always willing to talk about religion, politics, philosophy, any of that kind of stuff, any big picture stuff. I just find it interesting, even if I don't share my own opinions in response necessarily. Like, the more I know about how people think, the more I can decide how to think. But yeah, maybe a public Twitch stream isn't the best place to just openly bash Catholicism at length. Recently, I had a friend say, Hey, if there are any Catholics in the group, I was raised Catholic and I watched a lot of really bad Catholic movies growing up, and I want to do like a nostalgic retrospective on them with other people who grew up with them. And I wrote in the chat, it was a Zoom call, and I wrote in the chat, I've never wished I was raised Catholic before, and my friend's husband responded, "You still don't." Cancelled by the Pope. Oh no! I knew it was just a matter of time. Compare the checklist approach with learning more and more about yourself, and then noticing when you are with someone with whom you have a great mutual fit. In the checklist approach, you look for identifiable traits you think of as strong indicators of what you desire. This approach will probably find you someone for some period of time. It seems reasonable, maybe even necessary, but on average, it doesn't work very well. In the know yourself first approach, you don't seek someone to love, but learn to know and love yourself more fully. With this approach, when someone shows up and you think they might be a match, it's much more likely that you are correct, even if you can't say why. And even though they certainly will not check off every entry on your Find a Mate checklist. Quote, "Perhaps the biggest mistake I made in the past was that I believed love was about finding the right person. In reality, love is about becoming the right person. Don't look for the person you want to spend your life with. Become the person you want to spend your life with." Neil Strauss. Be with someone who makes you happy, and with is struck through so that it just says, be someone who makes you happy. I do think that might be like a little overly romantic, because you do have to search out a partner to get one, to some degree. But I do think that the common advice that you need to love yourself before someone else can love you, I think that's absolutely true. Mostly because if you don't love yourself, then there's no way for you to really know what's important to you, and for you to value the things that are important to you. And if you're not even sure what you like, how can you know who's going to be a good fit for you? That's how I see it. I've gotten very good at loving myself before loving somebody else, given that I've been on a medication that neuters me for the last 10 years. Love can happen accidentally, but vast majority of people need to seek it out. I agree, and I think that's fine. You want to meet somebody on Hinge or OkCupid? Be my guest. I've had some great dates on Hinge. The only reason I stopped was because I stopped caring. But I met some really cool people on Hinge. Granted, I'm in Los Angeles, and there are millions of people in driving distance, so that has something to do with it. There is self-love there. I do think I'm pretty damn cool. Zen emphasizes intuition over instruction, but we must keep in mind that it means intuition based on a foundation of deep self-knowledge. As the story of Buddha's many lifetimes portrays, intuitive instincts are more likely when you spend a long time preparing fertile ground. Which, to me, echoes very much of the saying of, opportunity equals preparedness plus luck, something like that. Or luck equals preparedness plus opportunity, one of the two. You are cool? Thanks. That means a lot. Quote, "Man, sometimes it takes a long time to sound like yourself." Miles Davis. A convenient summary of the traits of enlightened persons can be found in what Buddha requires of a bodhisattva, one who would teach others and help them toward enlightenment. He said that a bodhisattva should be self-controlled, correctly see the characteristics of phenomena, not be misled by life's illusions, Stay apart from the worldly life, be a monk or nun. See the emptiness of phenomena, that everything is dependent on so many other things and processes that nothing has the self-contained identity we conventionally assign to it. Be happy and never criticize or discourage others for where they are on their individual path to enlightenment. Cultivate the virtues of patience, gentleness, calm, wisdom, and compassion in self and in others. Strive to attain Buddhahood so you may do more to help liberate others. We can soften the monk or nun requirement to not being overly engaged with worldly things. We can remove the reference to attaining Buddhahood and still strive to help others, in part by improving ourselves. Once we make these two secularizing adjustments, this formulation is a reasonable starting point for anyone. In the Flower Sermon, the Buddha showed a lotus flower to several disciples in turn. When he came to each one, they stated something the flower might represent of the Buddha's teaching. One particular disciple, Mahakashyapa, sorry, India, instantly understood the essence of everything the Buddha had to teach, smiled, laughed, and said nothing at all. What can be said, I have said to you, the Buddha announced to them all. And what cannot be said, I have given to Mahakashyapa. Many people point to this flower sermon as the first time that enlightenment came in an intuitive instant and not from explicit instruction or some other multi-year or multi-lifetime journey. But this is not quite right. Note that the instantaneous insight depicted in the flower sermon was had by someone who was already one of the Buddha's closest disciples, not some random person lacking prior context. Mahakashyapa may have made a great leap in a single bound, but it wasn't premised on nothing. It was already on a solid foundation for that to occur. Perhaps, like Buddha, he had already been prepared by hundreds of prior lifetimes, secularly by much unmentioned prior experience. That is really cool, and it reminds me of something else that we've talked about in this book, which is that sometimes you have to be in the right place to learn a lesson. Sometimes you can have all the answers given to you, and you just won't see them for what they are, or you won't interpret them as deeply as you can. And it's not your fault, it's just you need more experience. You need more fertile ground. And I really like that that story. I feel like it's easy to misinterpret it as just being like frou-frou mysticism, but I think that's actually really beautiful. The idea that he could just see a flower and just be profoundly delighted by it and not have to say anything. That definitely sounds like enlightenment to me. I didn't always appreciate some lessons when I first heard them. I feel like I'm old enough now that most of the time if I learn a life lesson, I'm like, oh yeah, I knew that, but now I like know it. Flowers are pretty. Honestly, sounds like something that would happen if a person was on mushrooms or DMT. Anyway, I just saw a post yesterday where somebody was saying like, "Hey, I wanna get high on DMT, but I don't want to turn into a leftist. Is there like a specific dose I should use?" Bruh, if a hallucinogenic drug trip changes your political party, you're in the wrong political party. Outside of legend, we become partially enlightened in incremental bits, not in an everything all at once exalted moment. An aha, now I know how that gizmo works is fun and often valuable. An aha, now I better understand myself or that person or that conflict or that problem can be life altering or even life saving. I almost regret not trying a dispensary when I was in LA. Ah, hello, Killer Pie 7007. The path to enlightenment is mushrooms. I will not lie to you. In the past year or two, I have really, really strongly changed my mind about hallucinogenics. I used to think that they were just like a recreational drug in the same vein that, you know, weed and cocaine are recreational drugs, although the three of them are very different in terms of what they do to your body. But I'm starting to have the belief that psychedelics are, I almost want to say that I wonder if psychedelics were like a staple of ancient human life. I know that they were used in ancient human life, but I wonder if they were a staple of ancient human life, because I really do feel that hallucinogenics can have a lasting impact on a person's wisdom. I mean, you hear about psychedelic trips changing a person's entire life, and not because they become, like, addicted to it. It's not like meth, not even once. You can trip once on a psychedelic, and it can change your life. That is possible. That happens to people. I honestly think that psychedelics and mindfulness go hand in hand. Actually, I think psychedelics, mindfulness, kindness, wisdom, and liberalism are all in the same category of thought. I don't like strawberries. That's okay. I'm allergic to them, so not really on my plate either. Could be the mixtures used could have been more commonplace than we think. Well, like, mushrooms, it's not a mixture at all. It's just one chemical in one species. DMT obviously is more synthetic than that. And LSD probably is too, yeah. But as far as mushrooms go, yeah. Mushrooms are definitely ancient in terms of their use. Honestly, too scared to try anything like that intentionally. The only reason I did is because I have treatment-resistant depression, and I have tried many treatments, and they aren't working. So I gave it a shot, and I kind of don't want to go too deeply into it, because I neither want to... I don't want to talk too much about it this publicly, since it is illegal where I live. Maybe everywhere, but definitely where I live. But also, I don't want to come across as promoting drug use. I do happen to think that every intelligent person should at least try a psychedelic at some point. But also, I deeply respect anybody's decision not to. What surprised me is that psychedelics actually are not harmful. I don't know as much about LSD and DMT as I do about mushrooms, but it is actually impossible to overdose on mushrooms. The worst thing that can happen is you can have a bad trip. And even if you have a good trip, it is not habit forming. It is a really... It's a really, what am I trying to say? Just... I can't think of a better word than profound. It is just a profound experience that you don't necessarily want to repeat anytime soon, because it would be exhausting. What if I don't like what I see? If you are in a safe, quiet environment where you truly don't have to worry about anything and you just go into it with an open mind and you're surrounded by people you love and trust, you won't see anything you don't like. Some movies can function like a trip. I think all art has the potential to approximate something like that. But it's really hard. And of course, the viewer has to be in the right place emotionally for that to work. But yeah, the chances of something going wrong with a psychedelic trip really quite preventable. Quite preventable. I think the only way to have a bad trip in a quiet, safe environment is if you have fear or guilt about doing it. And obviously it's easier said than done to just rid yourself of fear and guilt. But if you are not living in those emotions and you've set up a good environment for yourself, you're not going to have a bad trip. You just won't. Anyway. A eureka moment can be profoundly life-changing and still be vastly less than understanding everything in the universe all at once, and the ending of all illusion. Once we have any particular insight, time is required to develop it fully. Some people are naturally gifted piano players, but they still have to practice to become the highly skilled best they can be. I believe that enlightenment works the same way. Even if you get off to a racing start, enlightenment remains incremental, and sustaining it after briefly glimpsing it requires continued practice. I feel the same way with, most philosophical and even technological breakthroughs. I think right after the breakthrough is a very exciting but very dangerous time where you're likely to make really big mistakes. But the breakthroughs are required for you to start mastering that breakthrough. So it's going to be scary at first, but then you work on it and it's less scary. Guilt is like second nature to me. Oh yeah, Catholicism, duh. Yeah. It can be tricky. Anyway. I am going with the following. Enlightenment is already within you, progressively revealed as you reduce and remove all the things that don't belong. That makes me feel warm, confident, and peaceful. It takes me a bit out of my head and into my heart. It reminds me that I need to develop the best of what is inside me, not just inject something from outside me or go someplace exotic, or become something foreign to who I already am. I just need to come home, where I have always belonged and always longed to be. Consider some point of dissatisfaction with yourself, something seriously troublesome, really. Something about yourself that troubles you a lot. A lot. Take as your goal not to fix what is broken in you. Take it as your goal to uncover more of the best in you, and help that grow to displace whatever is currently obscuring the best in you. How will you lovingly accept what is so, including the gap between how that part of you is now and how you really want it to be? What will you do to improve yourself, rather than spending any time at all condemning yourself, or waiting for the right time to be truer to your own highest values? What will you do right now, and repeat often, to uncover more of what is most beautiful in the person you are? You become more and more of what you most frequently practice. I love this song. I wish that I could play Alicia, but I think the vocals would be distracting while I read. I don't imagine Michelangelo saying to himself, "The torso is pretty good on this statue of David, but I won't be ready to work on the face until Da Vinci holds me in higher esteem." He did not wait for the embrace that Da Vinci was never going to give him. Confident in himself, he just skillfully, carefully, artfully took away the bits that didn't belong to the vision he had of what he wanted to create. How will you uncover the better you out from under the bits that don't belong? How will you do it peacefully, respectfully, artistically? What characterizes those times when the challenge of the moment causes you to not practice living up to your values more fully? You are the artist and the art, the gardener and the garden, the musician and the music. Get to work and keep working. Get on with what is uniquely your art alone, improving yourself with no delay. Chip away at the junk so the beauty within is revealed. Consider the personal objective dearest to you right now. Imagine you already have it, but it's in hiding. You need to reveal it, unblock it, and mature it. But the sheer fact that you can imagine it means that at least the seed of it is already inside you. Take what is great about you, and use those characteristics and skills to reveal, unblock, and mature other things that are already great about you. You won't be adding something from outside you, but growing something inside of you in fertile soil. Regular, actual practice of whatever skills you want to get better at is the most important thing you can do to actually get better at anything. I like that. I think that's a good point, that if you hold something as an important goal for yourself, then you are already capable of moving along that path. Otherwise, you wouldn't value it in the first place. Hi, Aaliyah. Welcome. How you doing? I finished Clair Obscur. It's good. Very good. What enlightenment is not? How are you all in this fine evening? How are those strawberries? They're, strawing, berrying, red. What are the things we must reduce and remove in order to uncover the enlightenment that is already within us? Every one of us can list some things we recognize as part of us today that we'd be better off for not having tomorrow. Begin by putting those things on your list. You might be condemning something wrongly, but you can edit the list as you learn more. Buddhism identifies the most important obstacles to enlightenment as greed, hate, and illusion. As these thrive, not only do we impede our enlightenment, we ensure more suffering for ourselves and others. The opposite of these three poisons are the three virtues of generosity: anti-greed, loving kindness, anti-hate, and wisdom, anti-illusion. Both the poisons and the virtues are reckoned as inherent in the human condition. It is surely obvious that one is encouraged to minimize one's greed, hate, and illusion, which answers the question of what we should endeavor to remove. It is likewise obvious that we are encouraged to nurture and develop our generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, which is at least a partial answer to what enlightenment looks like. For each of us as individuals, beyond greed, hate, and illusion, there are many more and subtler things to remove, to leave more room for the many things we mean to increase. Practice includes both the takeaways and the adds. Do a little at a time, but often. Practice not doing the things you wish to extinguish, as well as practicing the things you wish to make the most common features of your experience. Enlightenment is elusive. Bad news. Even once enlightenment has been experienced or partially experienced, maintaining oneself in that state is very difficult. It is so hard that the facts packed into Buddhist storytelling say that attaining enlightenment takes many lifetimes, even for Buddha. A secular way to understand the idea of reincarnation is to see it as a colorful storytelling device meant to indicate that enlightenment is elusive in the extreme. Also, it can imply that we can develop ourselves so much that in different chapters of our lives, we may seem like different persons. Why bother? Good news. Even small movements in the direction of enlightenment are profoundly valuable for the new understandings, equanimity, and choices they afford us. As much as you can, break your habits of thought to allow a much more fluid and expansive view of the world. Although you may never get close to enlightenment, every step you take in that direction makes you a better person to be with, a better force in the world. Each step is in the direction of allowing love, compassion, creativity, peace, and joy to become ever larger features of your life. That, of course, is another suggestion about what enlightenment might look like, and a great intermediate objective, at the very least. Oh, have a great concert! I hope you have a wonderful time and hope for preparing goes well. Yes. Enjoy. Goodbye. I'm looking... we're at a chapter break, and I'm wondering if I should stop here. Usually I go for 2.5 hours instead of just 2, but I went to a Halloween party last night and ate a lot of candy. And now my throat's really dry. Maybe I'll, like, play The Room 2 or something. I like The Room 2. Sure, I'll play The Room 2 for a little bit. I gotta download it, though, but it's small. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. Yeah, candy, fuck you. I've still got some. Every year, the host buys more food and candy than she can actually do anything with. And throughout the entire night, she'll be like, "Can I get you anything? Do you need more? Please take more. Please take more." And then when we leave, she's like, "Please take candy. Please take candy. I have so much candy." I'm like, you can just buy less then. What was I doing? The Room 2. Ba da da, ba da 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 da. Okay. Switching over to the game stream. And whoa! Why did it boot in the other monitor? I don't want that. I want you to boot in my right monitor. Stop! Let's see. Let's see. Maybe if I do it from here? Fuck! Okay, maybe I can change the settings in-game. I don't want to have to move all of my, like, chat and OBS stuff to the other side. Options. Graphic settings. No, it's not. It's not in the settings. Why is this happening? I'm not feeling very zen at the moment. Maybe right click and Okay, what if I take it off of full screen and then move it to the other monitor and then put it back into full screen? Let's try that. Options, graphic settings, Full screen off. Move. Full screen on. Yeah! I did it! Okay. Oh no! You have fallen into the Uma Musume hole! Unfortunately, it is peak. I refuse to fall into the Uma Musume hole because I know I will get stuck there. And I'm just not willing to do that. Okay, let's play the room 2. Yeah, we'll start from the beginning. Oh, progress will not be saved. Can I... Oh wait, no, I should change the profile is what I should do. Oh, that's right. I did actually. I think there was an earlier stream where I did the first 2 levels. So I'll just go from this point. That's fine. So this is just a point-and-click room escape type game. It works a little better on mobile than with mouse, but that's okay. Another room, another door, another room. Either you are as lost as I, or more likely you have forsaken me. Another room, another door. Yet never a pang of hunger, nor the welcome respite of sleep. Another door, another room. I keep a tally in my ledger, but I can no longer count the marks. Count the page. Writing keeps me sane. I tell myself so. I did not deserve this hell. A.S. Yoink. I gotta turn up the brightness. Option. Graphics. Oh wait, no. It's in the over right there. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh. It's been a while since I played the game, so I don't quite remember the order of operations. Stumbling around in the dark a little bit here. The Uma Musume hole sounds so gross. Can't remember what to do. Oh, there we go. kind of like the fact that the different seasons are different stories for different horses, and they perfectly match the IRL counterparts. It tingles my tism. That's cool. I didn't realize that each of them were like based off of a specific breed. I do like that kind of attention to detail. Oh, Japan, giving us a new definition for horse girl. Oop. I have to. There we go. That back. Ding. Oh, fuck me. Okay, fine. I guess we're going off that little triangle at the bottom. Yeah. I don't remember how to do this. Damn it. Not what I wanted to do. Actually, this works. No, it doesn't. There we go. Spooky sound for nothing really happening. Ding. What a weird lock. This part is annoying. You have to do this 4 times. Why? Fun and interactive gameplay. Excellent. Oh, I should... I see a once mighty people brought low by these heathen invaders and their plagues. They took to their priestess for the will of the gods. Oh, they look to their priestess for the will of the gods. But the jaguar and the feathered serpent speak to me no more. The crystal of our ancient mothers is being summoned. I would speak to them. Okay. Not the breed, the entire racehorse. Oh! Oh, it's an actual individual horse. Wow. That's some pretty intense attention to detail. Yeah, I like the respect too. Very cool. Wait, what does it mean for a horse girl to have a jockey? Do I want to know? No fan service whatsoever. We like that. We do indeed like ourselves a wholesome. What's the genre called? Cute girls doing cute things. We like it when that genre doesn't have sex in it. I really like the music design here. Click. No jockeys, we're referring... Oh, okay. Got it. It references both the actual horse and the actual horse's jockey. Got it. Okay. Yeah, this game is made by Fireproof Games. They've only put out one game, I think, that isn't in the Room series. And I haven't tried it yet, but it looks very cool, and it's the same vein, too. Like, eerie, point-and-click kind of thing. But... Where's the mirror? But it's VR only. I do have a Meta Quest 2. Got it when it was called the Oculus Quest. I think. Maybe I didn't. Point is, I want to play it. But I'm trying not to buy games right now. That was the sound. Aw, poor guy. Beep bop boop. This needs to be like that. You just damocled? I don't know what that means. Okay, it's just a straw effigy. It doesn't have feelings, I think. Beep bop boop. I see. Past lives, future lives, impossible lives. Oh. Whoever that is, they're really going through it. Be on fire! That guy's like, bro, what? I am blind as my reflection. Our gods do not live here. This way brings no salvation. This path is not for my people. I shall seal them from it. You know, given that this was presumably written by a native Central American, their English is very good. I'm cheating a bit because I have played this game like 10 times. I really like this set piece though. This is beautiful. Gotta find the position where everything lines up. Ding. It's so gross. I love it. Just realized that this level doesn't require you to use the spyglass at all. Not even once. Come on. I guess you have to use it for this part, but that's a given. You think they're reusing some sound effects? They probably are. Level is weird. I hope nobody here believes in evil witchcraft, because this level's about evil witchcraft.
Miss Margaret Cox, I am writing to you for the final time before I begin the proceedings I have brought to your attention. Since my brother's disappearance, you have attached yourself to my mother like a leech. For her sake, I would prefer this to be quiet, but you are a charlatan and a fraud, and I will expose you as such if I must. Leave her be, or else the paper has offered me a full page. Robert Bailey.
Well, somebody's having a bad day. Oh! The English lads are coming, tally-ho, lads! Mounts a cannon on top of the stairs. Yeah, Fireproof Games is a British company, so I think all of the Room games take place in England. Ah, this one's from Maggie Cox. For Simon Grayson, aka the Great Khan! What has become of you? You know, I can tell when you're lying. I was the only one you could never fool. I know you have it. You started playing without me. Sounds magnificent. This pressman isn't going to leave me alone, and you owe me, you sow. Since when can you resist putting on a performance? Be pioneers. I'll be at the Lion at 9 o'clock. You'll be there. I know you. Mags. Well, that was vaguely, thinly veiled as a threat. No, wait, thinly veiled threat is what I meant to say. I'm good at English. It's my first language. Unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, so let's, that. Right? Yeah! Down. Hi, and Revenant. Finished reading for the day. No, we didn't finish the book. I just, I didn't want to be talking as much on behalf of, because of my throat is a little dry. My voice is okay. Let's see if I can just cheat this by vaguely remembering the positions from previous playthroughs. Apparently not. The bottom one is definitely 5. And... oh wait, isn't there like a... There we go. Middle one's 4. Top one is 2. I did that! Maybe they make it not work if you can't possibly have that information yet. Cheeky. Go, Marble, go! Come on. Hmm. 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 Stuck on. Hmm. I've never struggled with this much. This is embarrassing. Okay, so I need to get on there, which means... Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yay! It's used for this. Is it? Huh? Yeah. Late because I was enraptured in discussing far-fetched astro things with my friend, still couch surfing at his place. Specifically, what would the planet's weather systems look like if Earth was tilted 90 degrees? Oh man. That would, catastrophic to say the least. But very interesting. Am I not allowed to look through the lens? Okay. Oh, that's right. I'd have to just hit the flash button. You know, just normal stuff. World building for fantasy settings can be really, really cool to delve into. For sure it can. Oh, so you don't mean... You don't mean what if that happened to the Earth as an event. You mean what if the Earth had always been like that? That would indeed cause some very different weather patterns. I don't remember how to like prompt this for the first time. Oh. Infinity. This part is very tedious. Spooky.
began at home, staring at the stars. So much to discover, so little time.
Basically, I have a twice-a-year weather pattern of tidally locked planets, and that would still interact and mess with a normal rotating body weather pattern. That's over my head. Don't quite know what you're saying, but that sounds like a yikes. Okay, home, stars, time. This is such a good concept for a Ouija board, yeah. Welcome back. Oh yeah, baby, we got more of this bullshit. Oh. Eh. Countless ships bore us triumphant to a hidden temple. It was at home you proved a shallow friend. What a terribly constructed sentence. Okay. Ships, temple, home. Ship. Temple. Oh, temple. Home. Good. They're here. Fucking. Ooh, I know my alphabet. Under these alien stars, I courted only death. I am saved by science, my muse. There we go. Up, up, down, up. Down, down, up, up. Wait. Up, up, down, 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 up. Yeah. Saw the stream notification when I was looking for a research paper that I shared with Cassis forever ago. Oh my gosh. Cassis does love his word building. What was it? Stars, science, and death. A little dramatic, this ghost in it, for real. This ghost is like, please read my fucking poetry. Ah, a short word, thank you. Oh. 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 The null graced me with time for a dozen lives' work. Now death returns to take his due. I remember the programmer in me was like, oh, null. Okay, got it. I just won't put anything in there, in that slot then. But there actually is a null card that you have to find, which irritates me. But the others were... Was it time and death? Yeah. And I always forget what I'm supposed to do from this point. Oh, that's right, the bell fell off. And it is, in truth, a little key. A little key. A little key. It is a cool game. World of the Unliving. Yeah, living, unliving, whichever. Yeah, I really like this whole series. I genuinely think every game they've made is better than the previous one. Gone! Now what? I think I used the clapper bell key on one more thing. Oh yeah, the side of the box. No! Oh no. Okay, good. I thought I went too far. Pacham! Gimme. Oh. Angry spirit. Well shit, I do not remember how to get that strip of photograph. Also, sometimes with escape room games like this, I'm just like, really? I couldn't have just punched the glass and skipped the entire room? Where's that strip of photograph? Is it in the camera somewhere? I don't think so. Oh. Oh. Hint. Oh, there's a drawer I just didn't open. Cool, good job, me. Yeah. You're here, then my travails have not been in vain. If nothing else, my promise to you gave me purpose. I was damned for trapping you here, and now I offer you my redemption. Finally, I hold the key. The secret to this world of worlds, this place of endless places. With it you may lift the veil, peek behind the curtain. You do not have to take the path that is offered. It's a weird thing to say in a completely linear video game. Gross. Oh boy! Hey buddy. It's gonna...
Hey, don't mind me. Just gonna squeeze past you. Oh, just gonna squeeze right past you, dear. Ew. You ought to be congratulated! You escaped the curious events of the seance, with all your faculties intact. Sure did. I don't really know why this level is here, because it's ridiculously short. Ridiculously short. But I don't dislike it. I'm just confused by it. There we go. Maybe they just really wanted to show a tentacle in the lake. Or bay, or wherever I am. Even short journeys can cover great distance, and by making it to the other side of the crossing, you are now ready for the final step. May good fortune go with you. A laboratory and a lighthouse. What could go wrong? Who do I vote? Subject Beta 4, Rattus Rattus. Subject Necrosius significantly halted by pre-mortem application of Serum 5. Temporary musculature reflex restoration witnessed with post-mortem electrical stimulation of range 75 to 85 milliamps. Gross. I don't think these open. Can't read books. Books not read. Subject Alpha 17, Lamprina aurata. Subject unresponsive to post-mortem application of Serum 4 combined with electrical stimulation of range 10 to 100 milliamps. Corpus degradation considerable with high amperes. Conclude. I don't know what the fuck this accent is supposed to be. Conclude. Oleopra unsuitable for further study. I do think this is a funny fake out. You think that you're gonna open this and get whatever the fuck that is, and then it's like, nope, different compartment. Got waves, Signa, and that thing. Waves. 1. That thing is 3. That's 7. 173. 669. Let's go! It's alive! Oh. Come on. There we go. I like the stock electricity sound effect. I like laser puzzles. Something fun about bouncing light all over the place. Dear Professor de Montfus... While I don't doubt your altruistic motives, your sister's condition is not aided by her continued confinement to your estate. I beg of you to see Madame Lucy return to the sanitarium as early as can be arranged. Yours, Dr. Beckett. I love it when family takes care of each other. Now, if I remember right, there's like something... Yeah. I don't like that. That you just have to think to put on the lens while looking at this drawer to ever even consider looking at the underside of this drawer, which I can't do? Question mark? There it is. Ah! Okay, you're dead. There's not anything under this one, right? Subject EH, upper right appendage, severed at glenohumeral joint. Necrosis in subject halted completely via pre-mort application of serum 5, followed by post-mort application of serum 4. Perfect musculature reflex witnessed with electrical stimulation at 77 3/4. Wow, that's very specific. Put a bug up here. Ah! I need another battery. Can't remember. Will this also hit? Oh no, that's set in stone. Okay, I'm gonna need another battery or another laser or something or another. Oh. Beep. Have it. A battery. And a bug. Or whatever this is. Here's another thing I don't like about this level. Why would anybody ever think to unscrew this lid? Don't love that. Again, this is the second game. There's 4 out right now, plus a VR title, plus a VR title in a different series. So, like, I really do think the design in each one is better than the last. Go ad-free with Twitch Turbo! No thanks. Experiment 13, subject L, cardiac viscous. Necrosis halted indefinitely. Manual operation at 77 3/4 milliamps. Facility of life restored only with proximity to raw null. No further avenues. No way back. Dear Lucy, forgive me. I was too late. A little melodramatic, this guy. Alright. Alright, charging up another battery. Exactly like the first time. What could go wrong? Nothing, that's what. Oh no. That's alright, I'll just put a metal object into that while it's arcing all over the place. Gross. Gee, I wonder what kind of experiments they were running in this lab. I think you've set off the burglar alarm a few times now. I don't get... Oh, you mean, like, crossing the lasers? Yeah. Okay, so we've got the angled kind of E shape and the null shape. Ah! Where's the... Where the heck is the handle? Oh, it's up. So, I want that. And I want... Ooh. That. Oh my god. It's a strangely shaped key. I've foreseen. What does it look like? Triangle, and then just straight across. Eh. That is a very weird key. When is this game set? I don't know, 18 something maybe. I guess it must be 18 something, cause or maybe very early 20th century. Because there is electricity. Welcome. Seems to be my fate to be forever standing on the shoulders of greater men. Not a bad thing. Montfaucon's work here makes mine appear that of a child, but he never cracked the final secret to the doors as I have. He carried with him the key all along, but he never realized. The soul is the root of the no. Why, they almost rhyme. It comes down to a simple trade. Mine for hers, and hers for yours. The heart is the seat of the soul. Travel well and don't look back. Ever you see here, ever look back. So fucking dramatic. Okay. So the 3 dots have to be on... Wait, what is it? Okay. 3 dots there. Then... one dot needs to be on the Triforce. I remember I've always had trouble finding the 3rd one. In some playthroughs, I'll just, like, use trial and error, since... I want to actually find it, though. But here, let's put the 1 dot where it should be. I know that there is another... It doesn't make you guess, the last one. Definitely remember having found the information in the previous play. But where, oh where?
Is it on the table here? No. It is very mist-like, yeah. Very mist-like indeed. What if mist but Halloween? I love that. Oh, here it is. Two on there. Gross. The heart is the seat of the soul. Oh. 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 Whoa. Oh. A lot of doors. Oh wait, did I accidentally do what it was without even using the... That's funny. Motherfucker's in a Doom game. But no demons for some reason. Just science fantasy things. Game complete! Congratulations! You have completed the Room 2. Where many have faltered, you have succeeded in discovering the many mysteries held within this most unique space, led the laboratory, and escaped the confounded house where it all began. After much scientific study, I can only conclude that it is an absolute impossibility that the null sample under my custody is the only one in existence. It stands to reason that there must be a great number of somehow coordinated samples which exert some form of control over these curious events. Professor de Montfaucon, 19th of November, 1903. Well, that answers that question. The arms just wanted to hug you to death. Yeah. So, if you thought that was cool, check out Fireproof Games. They've got some good shit. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you very much for coming to my stream. I hope you had fun. I hope you had some philosophical thoughts if you were here for the earlier part of it. I will export this to YouTube. Yeah. So we've just finished Fate Zero on the Discord server. This coming Saturday, that is the 1st of November. I don't think I have anything going on, so I should have our normal watch party. Pretty sure. And then a week from today, we'll stream more Silksong. We're going to be starting a show called Metallic Rouge, which is an anime that came out a couple of years ago. It's not relatively well known, but my friend Matthew wrote the English dub for it, and I think he did a wonderful job, and it's a fun show, so we're going to check it out. I will see you guys later. Be kind to yourselves and be kind to each other. And, oh, I did it out of order. Oh no!